Hi everyone, this is Professor Thomas coming to you about the F major chord and 145. That is where we're headed this week. So let's talk about that F major chord. First of all, we have learned already that all chords are made up of how many notes or more? 3. Good. 3 or more notes played at the same time is what makes a chord. So far, we've learned that the recipe for C major chord is C, E, and G. Good. And we know that the recipe for the G7 chord that we've been playing is B, F, and G. I always spell the chords out from bottom to top, the way I play them. The third chord that we're going to learn is the F major chord. F major chord, the way that we're going to play it is C, F, A. But really the chord, if you wanted to spell it in root position, which means starting on the letter that is related to the actual chord symbol, which in this case would be F, then I would have to reverse this and say F, A, and C. Remember, if I put those three ingredients into the bowl and mix them up, that's what I'm going to get, an F major chord. Doesn't matter how I mix them up. C, F, A, F, A, C, or A, C, F. Doesn't matter what order my hand is. If I put those three notes together, that's what I get. So, this week, we are learning about the F major chord. Let me show you something from our book. If we take a look over here, and I've put just these pages of our book in our weekly module, but you can also just look at them in your Alfred lesson book. Here we're going to see F major chord for the left hand and the right hand. Okay? And in both cases, we are now moving our finger, as we learned last week we could do, to stretch the 5-finger position, the 5-finger C position. We can go one tab over, one step over, and play the next note. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to reach up above the C position to include the note A. Now, in the left hand, if you look about halfway down the sheet, you can see that the C major chord, C, E, and G, moves up to C, F, and A. But notice, be very careful about the fingering numbers. Here, the finger 1, if you'll notice in C major, finger 1 is playing G. And in F major, finger 1 is playing A, because your thumb magically can move pretty far over, but we're only going to move one step over. Down toward the bottom of the sheet, you can actually see what we call voice leading, how the individual notes or voices move. So C on the bottom stays for all three, for both chords in all three measures, C major, F major, C major. The note C gets restruck. What happens is that the upper two notes, the E and the G, move up, and you play F and A, moving your thumb over for the A to get the F major chord, and then you move back to C. Okay, so you definitely want to practice this motion going back and forth between the two. Now, if we look at the right hand, we pretty much have the same thing, except, of course, here now we're talking about our 5th finger being on A and having to move over to A. But we're also going to move our 3rd finger over to F. You could play the F major chord with your 4th finger and then stretch to get the A with your 5th finger to get that 3rd at the top, but it's usually just easier to move your whole 4 fingers over, because once again, your thumb has that motion, that movement motion. Okay, I'm going to show you this on the piano in just a little bit. Once again, you can see the notes that spell the chord, the ingredients of the chord, and then you can see the voice leading. So, this week we are including the F major chord. Now, what is this 145 business? Let me explain it like this. If I go back to my C major chord scale, remember all of these chords that we're playing, they're actually living in the key of C. So C, the C major chord, is the 1 chord because it's built on the first note of the scale in the key of C. F major which is actually played in the C position, is a chord that is actually related to the fourth note of the C major scale, right? C, D, E, F. So we call that the 4 chord. However I play it, doesn't matter. Remember, the ingredients are in the bowl, that's an F major chord. But it's a 4 chord in the key of C, because C is the 1 chord. So what's the 5th? What's the 5 chord then? That's right, G7. If I follow the scale, C, D, E, F, G, then that G7 chord that I'm playing, which is in the key of C, let's call it the burrow of C, then it's a 5 chord, okay? So when I say the 1 chord, the 4 chord, or the 5 chord in the key of C, that's what it means. So let's review. What's the 1 chord? C major. What's the 4 chord? F major. What's the 5 chord? G7. Those are the 3 chords that we're going to live with, and they make up a heck of a lot of songs in pop music, knowing the 1, the 4, and the 5. At the end of this week's module, you will see information about the next week's upcoming quiz and what we need to do to prepare for that. So next week will be a practice week with preparation for that quiz. Okay? Happy practicing, everybody, and I'll see you in a bit.